All right, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to a part 2 of this live coding series. So I don't even remember where I left off on this video, but we're going to try to implement some more stuff. I think it'd be good to basically persist the things that we are doing here to the actual backend. We haven't done that yet. We haven't actually integrated with, well, we've integrated with the backend. Oh, wow. What was that? Check that out. I don't know why they did that. Anyway, let me zoom out a little bit. This is just too small, too big. All right, so what are we doing? We want to basically have it so when the user clicks on save, we want to persist the things that they've clicked and send that to the API. If you remember in part 1, we actually did that. We're using like form data. We're posting that to the backend. Don't know if it's the best approach the way I implement it, but hey, it works. So let's look at the backend real quick. So basically here, what we want to do is we want to take rec.body, which is going to be an object of different like attributes, and we want to persist that to a database somewhere. So what I'm going to do is put a little to do and say persist body to database. And we haven't actually implemented a database yet, so we probably need to get that going. And I know there's like a really strange caveat with connecting to like Mongo with Next, but we're going to figure this out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to make sure I have Mongo running locally. You could also use Mongo Atlas if you're not like, I don't know, a Unix expert and you don't want to figure out how to install Mongo. But it looks like I do have MongoDB running and I have like a bunch of different databases here. So we are good. We should be able to do that. So one of the best ways to connect to Mongo is by using, I like to use Mongoose. I don't know if it's still like the de facto standard for doing like MongoDB development. But there is a library called Mongoose that you can install, and it's used to basically create data models to connect to your MongoDB. So let's just go ahead and install this. Go over here in my terminal, go ahead and install that. That should add it to my package.json. And then you can actually use this by just requiring it. And then you can connect, and then you can do some other stuff. I don't know the best way to structure this. I'm just going to put it all in this file for now to keep it simple, but at some point we need to extract this and probably put it in a shared helpers file somewhere. I'd have to probably read best practices for Next, like where you want to do this stuff. But for right now, let's just try to figure this out. So basically you create a Mongoose instance. You can connect your local database. I'll call this database part tracker. And obviously we can't use a wait outside, so we'll have to fix that. But the way Mongoose works is you create these like schemas, and you can use those schemas to basically fetch and save data into your database. So let's just copy some of this in. And we are going to create a schema called entry. Okay. And let's just check this out. So what do we actually need to track from the front end when someone is kind of using it? So if you go to the front end, we have some symptoms, we have some data points, okay? Probably not the best description for this, but let's just go ahead and start making some. So I'm gonna say symptoms. I believe this is like, what was this one? This was like a number, right? So I think I could say number. And in fact, maybe it makes more sense to make this a string instead of numbers, just so it's easier to understand. Yeah, whatever. Just keep it number. And then down here are some data points. Did you have dairy? So I can say like is dairy. I think it's just Boolean. And the other one is what? The other one is salty. Boolean. And then obviously we want a date. We want to keep track of when the user created this entry. So I'm going to keep this date here. So let's just look through this code. Again, this is not going to work perfectly because we need to actually connect inside the post request method. Let's just do this real quick. I wonder if I can put async here. Try that out. So let's just try this. So what we want to do, I'm sorry, kind of jumping around a little bit. Again, this is just like me live coding and just kind of explaining what I'm doing. So I like to jump around, honestly, when I'm coding. But a lot of tutorials you'll see will be very like structured. Anyway, I got off topic. So what we want to do is when someone hits this post request, right? So when someone basically saves this entry, that's going to do a post request to the endpoint. And that's going to send some data along the wire. We want to take that data and we want to persist it. So what you can do in Mongoose is, I believe you can say, const entry is equal to new entry. And then I could just kind of fill out all this information. You could do a ... if you wanted to. Like I could just say like ... rec.body. But sometimes it's better to whitelist stuff because you don't want a user just sending like anything over the wire to your backend. You want to kind of verify that it is what you expect it to be, and then whitelist these. Obviously, as you want to do some verification here, some validation, I guess that's the word. You need to validate the stuff coming over, but we're not going to do that just yet. But anyway, we have this entry now, and to save it to Mongo, I believe you just say like await entry.save. And I love GitHub Copilot. It just helps me so much. And then typically with post requests, there's like certain conventions that you need to follow when you're doing REST APIs. So when you do a post request, typically the backend returns you the same object that was just saved. So I could do something like, I think it's res.json. I don't know, we'll figure this out. So at this point, this is probably going to be pretty broken, but we'll figure out if it works or not. Let's just go ahead and click some stuff. Click save and see what happens. So this is doing a request to the backend, and the backend did crash. Let's go back to the backend and figure out why it crashed. So it's because I think I didn't even follow the documentation for the Mongoose. I think you actually have to like do something with this schema. You have to make a model from it. So like we have to do something like this. So we have a schema here. I can call it like, oops. So we made the entry schema, and then we need the entry model. And what we need to do is basically say entry, and that's entry schema. So you have to kind of set this stuff up, and you need to use the model when you're doing that stuff. So down here, instead of new entry, I'm going to say new entry model. And let's see if that makes any progress. All right, so the backend didn't crash this time. It actually returned something. So if you see the payload we sent to the backend looks like this, and the preview we got back is this. So the cool thing is that it looks like Mongoose kind of casted that false string. This is what we send in. This is the payload that's going to the backend. It was a string of false. This was null and this was 2. But if you look at Mongoose, it kind of casted these values or coerced these values to the actual things that you describe. So symptoms, this got casted to a number. Is dairy got casted to false. Is salty should probably also be false. But I want to fix this because this isn't really proper. If the backend API expects you to send over booleans and numbers and you're sending over strings, that's just dirty. So what I would recommend doing is going to the page, which is sending this stuff over, which I guess is this one. And honestly, I would just force these to be booleans by doing a double bang here. Cast it to a truthy, true or false value, and then like negate it. It's just a way to like change the string of false to, you know what, this ain't gonna work. I'm actually gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. This is, I don't know, there's probably a better way to do all this stuff. So if this is equal to the string of true, then that is when we set it to true. Otherwise it's gonna be false. Symptoms, we probably wanna parse int this. We don't want the backend getting a string of symptoms. So let's just make sure that this works. I'm gonna go ahead and select some different stuff, click save, and look at this. So now the backend is getting false, false, and 1. So this looks better. We're actually sending the correct stuff to the backend. Even though the backend was able to handle it before, honestly, the backend should have thrown exceptions or errors saying that like, hey, you're sending me some bad stuff. Where's this console log happening? There's like a false being printed out somewhere. I'm not really sure where that is happening. Oh, it's here. All right. Anyway, so we verified this should be hopefully connecting. So one thing I'm not too sure about is like in Next, should you be connecting to Mongo every time your endpoint is called? Like this seems kind of hacky, I guess you could say, and I want to kind of extract this to maybe helper functions. So whenever you're coding, the best thing to do is like instead of just doing stuff that you think will work, go find best practices. So like go find examples. So I'm going to say mongoose mongo next.js GitHub example. So let's look through here and see if maybe they have an example of how this works. So if I look at pages, they have an API. They have user. What is all this? So are they using Mongoose anywhere? Let's see. At API lib. So I'm guessing this is where they do plug username at lib. Let me go back a little bit and go to lib. So this is where they have like the Mongoose things defined, I think. Let's see. Nope. And I don't know. Oh, API lib. Maybe this is it. So in their API lib folder, they have a DB folder, which I'm guessing is what's connecting to Mongoose somewhere. Maybe, maybe not. They have some methods you can use for getting posts, inserting posts. That's passed in DB. So where does DB come from? Because that's kind of what I'm curious about, is where do they actually initialize this stuff? Right, so I knew there's something interesting that when you're trying to connect the Mongo with Next, because like every time you save your API, it like refreshes Next.js. So I believe they're doing something strange like this, like cache version of it. I'm not a big fan of that, but hey, if that's what they have to do. Then again, this might be old. I don't know. Database. So this is middlewares. I don't really know how middlewares work, to be honest. With Next, I have to go look that up. But somehow when you go to their API, and let's say you're trying to hit posts, somehow they're probably hooking in middlewares. They got database middleware here. Where's that used? Handler, Next Connect, NC Ops. What is that? As you can tell, I'm a noob when it comes to Next. So there are some stuff that like when I'm coding, you just got to go look it up. You got to figure out how do other people do stuff who are more experienced in this technology do stuff. Read through their code and kind of understand what's going on. This looks like just like a helper thing. I don't know what this does. Probably just console logs errors and then sends back the error message depending on the status code of your error. Don't think we need that. But it looks like what they do is they have this handler that they basically use on all their endpoints to connect to Mongo. And it probably does some stuff. Do I want to follow this approach though? That's the real question. Like what is NC, Next Connect? Is this like a third-party library? Might be getting into the weeds of like stuff that I don't want to do right now. The small method for routing. Yeah, this is like another third-party library I have to kind of understand and learn. I don't want to do all that right now. So for right now, is there a way to disconnect? Let me go back. I kind of just went off on a tangent, but what we want to do is we want to kind of extract some of this stuff. So what I would do is just put like a new folder called lib. In fact, I'm going to follow that structure API lib. That seemed like it's pretty good. And then inside of here, let's just make a file called db.js. And then we could also make like a models folder and we could put a new one called entry.js. Now, again, like there's 1,001 ways you can kind of develop stuff. Some approaches are better than others and you won't really know if it's good until you try it. So I recommend just trying some stuff out. But I'm going to do my own little hacky kind of database. I'm going to say this is going to be export default function called DB. That's going to connect to Mongoose and it's going to return Mongoose here. Again, don't know if I'm doing this right. We'll find out. So when we call DB, we should get a Mongoose connection. In fact, I don't know if we even need one. What we really need to do is, let's see, schema. Do we need schema here? Where is this used? Object ID, don't think we're using that. bear with me. I'm trying to think about the hot reloading thing. Remember that little comment that we saw in that code? I think what we want to do is so I'm gonna do something called like caching variables, I guess. This is kind of like a singleton pattern if you're used to that in Java, but I'm gonna say const or let db is equal to how did they do that? They did global dot db is equal to global dot db or mongoose. I think that's how they do it. I don't know if I need to do this, to be honest. I might be getting ahead of myself. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm just jumping around. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I think what I want to do here, though, is I want to import the mongoose connection here. And then we can register it here and export default entry model. Trial and error is the best way to learn, in my opinion. Just try stuff out. If it doesn't work, go back and refactor it. So we already have all this stuff kind of extracted away. It's good. We don't care. This entries thing shouldn't need to know about mongoose or MongoDB. All it needs to care about is like, how do I get this entry model? And again, this is like mongoose specific code. So maybe there's a way to abstract this as well if you want to keep this more clean. But instead of doing this mongoose stuff here, what I'm going to do is just require. It looks like they can do something like this. I haven't done this before, but this is like a top level, like relative to the project. I think I can do this. This probably won't work. Let's be honest, this probably won't work. Nothing ever works the first time. But let's just try sending it over, see what crashes. And if you look at this code, it says it cannot resolve this. So in order to get this working, I kind of wonder how he did the @ symbols. I think it's like a package JSON thing where require can be like specific to top level. So let me look at that up using @ imports. In fact, let me just go back to that project. Maybe it'll tell us. Again, honestly, I don't want to spend too much time on doing stuff because I don't want to waste y'all's time. I know y'all are watching this and I don't want to spend 20 minutes trying to figure out how to do that @ symbol import. But, you know, first of all, let's just double check I didn't misspell something. API lib models entry. Cannot resolve this. Got on my glasses, so definitely double check the spelling of everything. API lib models entry. Everything seems fine. You know, let me make sure that that wasn't just an old thing. Let me just let me just do the request one more time. Make sure it fails. Yeah, so how does he do that in Next? Somehow they're able to do a Next.js import like that. Okay, I don't want to waste your time. Anyway, like you could just go up a level, go up 2 levels. There's a way to do the @ symbol. Leave a comment if you know how. It's probably a super simple like flag you just have to set somewhere. I'm not Googling it right, and I'm not going to sit here and just try to figure it out live. Let's save it. We should get some errors. Okay. So now the await is failing. So let's go over here. And the reason this is failing is because this needs to be an async function, obviously. And let's go back and save it. We got another error. This is failing because schema is not a constructor. Because this is probably a promise, right? So there are some issues with what we're doing. And let me actually go back to this code. I do want to try to follow the same approach because I think it is what we want. How did he do that again? It's like middlewares, database, Mongo client. Global is used here to maintain a cached connection. Is this still an open thing? Merged. You know, maybe I'm just getting ahead of myself. If we call this, you know, let me just try. I'm going to change this up a little bit. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll be honest with you all. But at some point we do need to like set up the database. So here's like the chicken and the egg problem is like when this app runs, you have to connect to the database. So we do need to actually connect, but you also want this thing to be like connected and stick around. So like, I don't know if I need to do like connect to DB equals something like this. And then like, we just got to wait on it and run it before we do our Mongo calls. Again, this seems kind of dirty, but that's going to basically call this function, connect to the database, and we should be good to basically also import the entry. Let's try this. I don't think it's going to work either. Might be a long day of might be a long day of just debugging random stuff. Cannot overwrite entry model once compiled. Yeah, so I remember doing Next.js a while back, like a year or two ago or whatever, and I ran into the same issue. And the reason is because it's like, you can't call this twice because it's already called. So it's almost like we have to cache this somewhere. And the best way to do this is Google your error. So I'm going to say mongoose next, paste in that error. I know someone else has already fixed this issue. Let me zoom in. Another reason you might get zero, you see model different files, but require press it. Because I think what the reason this is happening is due to hot module reloading. So like when I save a file, Next.js is going to restart my API or restart that endpoint. But the schema is already defined because of the way memory works with Next. So it's like running into issues. So what I think I need to do avoid exporting and requiring modules. So that's maybe what I need to do. Don't export the model, and instead, I'm going to have connect the DB return mongoose, or return, yeah, that return mongoose. And this is a mess. Can you do that? You might have to do like model and pass it a string or something. Yeah, it's just like this. Mongoose model, and then I can pass in the name of the model I want. And then you do something like this. You know what? This is this is awful. This is awful. How do I do this? There has to be an example of how you do this with Next. And I bet you there's someone watching my stream like, dude, this is so easy. Like, how do you, like, come on now. Here's a quick example of how to do it. So, okay, maybe that's what I need to do. That makes sense. So when you get more experience with development, like I don't have to read through this blog post. I just need some code. I need to look through the code, and then like in 5 seconds, I can understand, okay, I understand what he's doing. So let's go back to this. He does export something, but the difference is that he exports a fallback. So I don't know if this will work. We're going to export entry. Otherwise, we're going to set one up called entry schema. And is this working? All right, so now if we were to import this, entry model, just call this entry, keep it simple, and then we're just going to do this. Now cross your fingers and hope this works. Looks like you don't need to do that. You might need to connect to the database here. We don't need to return mongoose at this point. All right, so Let's try this out. Let's click save, watch it crash, come back to the API. Connect to database is not a function. So let's look at what we're requiring. DB file. It is a function which you can call. Or default. Why would this say it's not a function? Kind of interesting. Why would this not be a function? I don't think naming this matters because it's a default. But let's try it again. What is going on here? Connect to DB is not a function. We're requiring that file, which is the right file. An async function, it's default. Am I mixing stuff? Like in Next, do I need to be using... Am I doing the wrong thing? Yeah, I think I'm saying exports is equal to... I think I'm just mixing stuff. Like I'm using ES6 modules in Node, which maybe isn't what we want to do. But maybe it's supported in Next. Next.js API example. Let me see how other people are doing this. You know, let me just go over here. Are they doing exports, export async? Yeah, you're still able to do the ES6 imports and stuff. So let's keep that as is. I mean, this should work. I'm just going to try it just for the sake of it. But I think this should have worked. New entry is not a... Okay, so... Yeah, maybe I'm just not doing something right. Maybe I actually do module.exports is equal to... And I have to do this. It's just strange. I'm looking at this example code and like, he's not doing that stuff. He's using like ES6 modules and are they called ESM modules? I don't know. Let me just click this. Okay, we didn't get an exception. Okay, did it work? I think it worked. That was a pain in the butt. I don't know if this is the best approach, to be honest. I don't know if we should have to call connect every single time. Like this is probably super bad for your database because now you're creating a connection every time. And like, when do you disconnect? Is there a disconnect call? Mongo connect call. Yeah, I don't know. Behind the scenes, maybe this is like, will cache your connection and it has like a connection pool. I'm kind of concerned about this code, but I'll do some research later on. Again, this is just me kind of playing around. This is not the best code, so don't use me as an example of like, oh, this is how you write your Next.js app. This is probably not how you do it. But what I was trying to do, and it took me like 30 minutes to get to this point, is I just want to make sure that if I go to my Mongo terminal here, in fact, I think VS Code has an extension where you can actually connect to Mongo. Let me see if I can install this extension. Connect to Mongo and Atlas directly from your VS Code. Let's try this one. So now that's installed, I can click on this, add a connection. Sorry, y'all, this font size is just too big. It's just too hard to code when the font's too big. I know it's easier to like, for you all who are watching this video on your phone, but it's just too hard. Connect with a connection string. All right, so let's type in the same connection string that we're doing in this file. Type it in here. See if this works. We're green, we're connected. We can look at the Heart Tracker app. We can look at entries. We see that we have documents here. And let's just go ahead and click this find button. And how do you actually use control space inside a snippet or a string to trigger completions? Control space. How do you run this? That's the real question. How do you run this code? Create a new playground. I'm on Mac, so control space inside a snippet or a string literal to trigger completions. I do not know what that means. Like, I highly doubt it means like it's gonna run this code. Wait, did that actually work? Let me go up here. Do a control. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'll read up on this later. I don't need to figure this out, but there's a way to actually like probably do queries. But anyway, what I want to do is I want to delete all my data because I have a bunch of like random data. You can actually click on some stuff here. So I think I can actually like delete from here maybe? No? View documents. Anyway, so as you do stuff, I have 6 documents. I can go over here, click another one. I think it'll show up over here at some point. Might have to refresh. We get the 7th one. And they all have unique object IDs. They all have a date on them. But what we really want to do is we want to kind of make these dates kind of the unique identifier. So let me delete some stuff. This live coding is going terribly wrong, but I want to take this a step further. So we don't want to recreate all of these on the same date because really it's like 1 entry per day, right? So we need to basically figure out the date of today without the timestamp. We need to look up if it already exists, and if it does, use that one. Otherwise, we create a new one. So I'm just going to say convert or get today's date and format of year, month, day. I don't know if that's proper, but we're going to try that. And instead of that being a date, we're going to change this entry to string. So we're going to say basically today's date, and we are going to query. So I can say entry.find where date is equal to today's date. And I'm going to say existing entry is equal to a wait on this. So I'm going to try to find it in the database if it exists. And I'm going to say if, maybe they have a find one. If it exists, then we will use it. Otherwise, we need to create a new one. So I'm going to go like this. So if it doesn't exist, we're going to create one and save it. And if it does exist, we are going to basically do existing entry. There's probably a way to merge this. I think it's the object.assign the existing entry with. I'll just do whatever got passed into the payload like this. All right, so this code is super messy right now, but hey. Entry to return. Y'all with me? So I'm going to basically keep track of what we want to return from the API. So it's either going to be existing entry or it's going to be the new one we just created. So I'm going to go ahead and say entry, I think .save. Don't know if it gives you what you want, but. All right, and since I don't really understand how to delete documents from this using the SQL thing, I'll Google that off this live stream. I'm just going to connect to Mongo here. I'm going to say use heart tracker, and I'm going to say show tables, or is it show collections? And I'm going to say entries dot delete. Is that how you do it? Mongo CLI delete collection. Collection dot drop collection dot delete objects in collection. I just want to delete all the objects in this collection. That's it. And there's probably a way to do it. I just don't remember how. Remove. Is it called remove? Entries. Oh no. Use heart tracker. db.entries.remove everything. There we go. My memory actually works somewhat. All right, so let's just go ahead and try hitting this API one more time. And we're going to hit it, and it crashes. Because today is not defined. So let's go back up here. There's probably, oh yeah, the reason it's not defined is because I changed it to today's date. So let's change that to today's date. And we're going to hit that one more time. No errors, so let's refresh. We get a document. If you look at the date, which I don't know why this is still a date object. I told it to be I told it to not be that. So I'm kind of confused why. Let me console log what this is doing. Yeah, so this is the correct string, but for some reason, this document is still storing it as a date. I don't know if, let me look at this entry again. Date is a string. So sometimes you just got to restart your thing. Just restart your API. I don't know what was happening, but it probably had a cache version of Mongoose laying around and it still had date, which it probably falls back on this. We're saying just use the cache version instead of registering a new one. That's the only issue I have with hot module reloading and like stuff like that, is that sometimes your app is in a bad state and you need to kind of clear everything and start over. So let's try it again. Click save. That saves to the database. We have two entries. Now this one is proper. So if I were to hit this endpoint again, we should not get a new record because it should have just updated one. So if I go and change some of the stuff, like here, click save, and refresh this view, try it again. It's not working because I did not save it. Yikes. Let's try this again. And then sometimes when I click on these things, it's not actually loading. Let's just change some of the stuff up. Click save. We should hopefully see it crash. Okay, so existing entry is not defined. I need to get ESLint set up because I'm typing in syntax errors. Stuff's crashing. But, okay, try this again. These should both be true. Let's look at the, oh, is dairy. All right, there's a bug in the UI. Man, I went in this video. This is rough. I'm struggling right now. So form data.get is dairy. If it's equal to true. So I think what we want to do is maybe if it's not checked, there is no value. Like I need to come back and figure out a better way to do this. But if I'm going to fix it to be true or false here, think I need to do something like that. So if I save this, it's still not setting any of these to true. Which is kind of confusing. So let's just go ahead and console log some of this stuff. I mean, is dairy should be printing out true because it's checked, right? So if I click it, it doesn't print out anything for some reason. Are we even here? We are here. I don't know what's going on, to be honest with you all. Like, okay. So this sucks. I don't know, like after I restarted Next, I forgot I needed to go and restart my thing because it's not connected to my Next instance anymore. This is just turning into a hot mess of things that an experienced Next developer would be like, oh, I'll just restart my UI. But since I don't know what I'm doing, and these are backwards, is dairy should not be true, it should be false. So if it's equal to true, let me, this should be working. False, do that. All right, the console log should be working now. Let's just go print this out. False, null, false, null. Let's see what type this is. Object, string, object, string. So did I do this wrong? Okay, I have false here in value. I don't know why I was doing that. I'm so stupid. Okay, let's just go here. If they're equal to true, it'll be defined, and this should be true and false. As you can tell, I'm frustrated, y'all. Coding can be very frustrating because, like, you're getting caught up on really stupid stuff. Like, this is trivial stuff that I've wasted probably an hour already just doing. But tomorrow it would be much easier because I'll be used to it. Symptoms is null as well, so like I think I want to default this to, I don't know, maybe we should like default it here. So I don't know how to do that right now. We'd have to do some type of value is equal to symptoms, I believe, which we don't have it set yet. Actually, I wonder if there's a way to say checked, like just default that one to be on. And then when we do it, when we send it over, symptoms is 2. All right, well, I'm gonna wrap this up. I mean, I think we made some progress. I know we hit a ton of snags along the way, a lot of frustrations for me, but at least we have this thing kind of creating an entry in Mongo and updating it if we keep on doing consecutive updates. Now, honestly, this should be a put request, not a post. Posts are usually when you're creating new things, but technically we're just like recreating or updating the existing one. So I'd rather do a put here, and then here I'd change it to put as well. Let's make sure this works just so we don't break anything. But yeah, I think the next step is when I load this app, I want to fetch this data from the backend with a new API endpoint and just populate it for today's values, and that's about it. Anyway, thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment if you have any. But yeah, have a good day and happy coding.